I recently had the idea to reach out to each of the candidates running for governor in Illinois. So far, I've reached out to two of the three, and one accepted the invitation. They recently sat down with me, and of course, we discussed cannabis policy, along with several other issues that may affect you as an Illinois resident. Here's a clip from one of the moments where we talked about cannabis policy. If you'd like to hear more, I'd encourage you to check out the full interview. I'll have it linked in the description for this clip, or you can find it at colememo.com. Once again, that's colememo.com. It's episode 306 with Collin Corbett. Here's the clip. Let's get into policy. So some people may be tuning in and not realizing, like, the show is not called the Cole Memo just because my name's Cole. It's actually a reference to federal cannabis policy. And of course, we have cannabis policy in Illinois. And I was just curious, because my audience, it's a topic I discuss. What's your overall philosophy on cannabis policy in the state?
Yeah, when it comes to really anything, I don't think government should be telling you how to live your life. And so if you're ever looking for, where's Collin going to start from on a policy, that's where I'm going to start from. Obviously, I understand that there is the need for government, and there are things that government has to do. That's why I'm not actually libertarian. But when it comes to especially social policy, or you want to light one up. I mean, I'm looking for an excuse to light my cigar during this conversation because that's my vice. So I'm not going to tell you how to live your life or anybody else. I know when it comes to marijuana policy in this state, to be honest, many of the same problems we have at every level in Illinois are impacting marijuana policy. So first of all, just the challenge in this state where our lawmakers pass laws that can sound good and even look good on paper, but then don't actually accomplish what they intended to accomplish. This is a problem we see all throughout government in Illinois. Our politicians think the job is done when they pass the bill, take the photo, and smile for the social media post. But that's the easy part. The hard part is implementation. And so when you see with marijuana policy, with issuing these licenses, and what was it, a 3-year delay when it comes to independent growers and minority growers, I mean, you already have a situation where the big conglomerates, they already come in with massive advantages. Now you're going to say they got a 3-year head start because we can't figure out how to issue licenses in this state and how to figure out the regulations. I wish I could tell you that was unique just to your world and the weed world, if you will, but it's not. I mean, this is just how Illinois works. And so, that's stifling competition, which is artificially keeping costs high in this industry. And that doesn't work. Our regulations are too high, which that's universal. I mean, Illinois puts 282,000 regulations on businesses. That's the 4th highest in the country. And I don't have to tell you how much Illinois regulates our business in this state. And so that makes it harder to survive, harder to thrive. And it makes it where people then know they could get less expensive stuff in, let's say, Michigan. And so that's a big challenge here. Another challenge is also comes down to the lack of competition, that you can grow in this state, but only to a certain amount, because God forbid you be able to compete with those big guys who cut the giant checks and hire the really expensive lobbyists. And so, of course, we want to keep you independent growers to, a reasonable size where you're not actually a problem to the big guys' bottom line. And then not letting you compete outside of plants where there are plenty of products that you should be allowed to compete in. Those are all things that, while I'll admit my knowledge of your industry is more limited maybe in other places, these are the things I currently know. And I know that competition increases quality, decreases costs. And frankly, it's just more American. And so, that's where I'm going to be an ally, fixing our policies, fixing our regulations, streamlining those, making sure that we can actually get these licenses out in a reasonable amount of time. Those are all things we absolutely need to do. And it's just making Illinois government work again. I think we all feel this. Yeah, the way I describe it is Illinois is stuck. We have so many advantages, whether it's in our ag sector or in manufacturing or transportation. There are so many things that make Illinois have massive potential, and yet we're not reaching that potential. It's government that is getting in the way. But the good news is, having done this for 20 years, I can tell you that if we just get some common sense things done in the first few years, we can change that trajectory, and this state can really take off. That goes to your industry just like every other industry.
Yeah, and I want to ask one more specific question, then I'll use this as a gateway. Sorry, that's a stupid
Gateway.
pun.
I like it.
As a gateway to other subjects, politically, like, related to policy here in Illinois. One criticism that you noted was that, we basically legalized a limited number of retail storefronts, but specifically without broadly legalizing home cultivation, which is wild, I think. Like most,
Yep.
I've talked to my parents who don't imbibe, they don't plan to, they don't have any aspirations to, but they are like, what? You can't grow it at home? And I'm just curious, how do you view that policy choice? I figure you said governor, or you don't want government intervening in our lives, so you don't support that, but I didn't want to assume. Do you think home cultivation should be like just something that's allowed if it's legal?
Yeah, it's legal. It should be allowed. I mean, what you want to do in your garage is none of my dang business. Not that you do it in your garage, but I mean, my dad lives in Arizona, and I'm never going to out him. But when he's buying gummies, he's not buying Haribos. And it's legal in Arizona. He's flabbergasted when he hears that you can't do that in Illinois. I mean, I know why, and it really goes to the heart of the problems in Illinois. It's how much special interests control the political process. You've got these big conglomerates, these big businesses. They have not only the big lobbyists, but they cut big checks to these politicians. And so it creates this incentive structure to not go against what they want you to do or not do what they don't want you to do. And of course, in their lack of competition mindset, letting people grow at home is going to cut into their business, which, to be honest, I've not found that to be the case. That when you open up an industry, it's the grow the pie mentality. And this is what kills me. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but these people who are capitalists, who are free market people, which is we have crony capitalism in Illinois and too often in America, which we need to fix. But if we could have real capitalism, that would be good. And yet these are people where the foundational tenet of capitalism is grow the pie. Stop fighting over ever shrinking slices, but grow the pie. And you live in a world where you create this space for people to be able to grow their own plants. And all you're doing is increasing your market. That's all you're doing. And so, yeah, you're going to give up a little here to gain a heck of a lot more over there. But it's just this closed-minded mentality that we have in Illinois, that we would rather fight over an ever-shrinking amount. I call it the death spiral in Illinois. We are in an economic and fiscal death spiral where we're not willing to spend a little bit or open things up a little bit. And so that's why you see every year we have to raise taxes just a little bit more, because the whether it's losing businesses or losing residents, we're constantly shrinking those people who are paying into the system. It's why we can't afford to keep the Bears in Illinois. It's why we couldn't afford to have FIFA in Chicago, have the World Cup in Chicago. We don't have money for luxuries because we can barely even keep the lights on. So we've got to change this mindset and get back to a growth mindset, let's start to thrive in this state. Let's start to move forward and think big and think positively. That's what Pritzker promised us when he got elected. And unfortunately, in most areas, we haven't gotten what we were promised.
Well said. I had a question, like I say, to use it because cannabis really has helped me to learn about the political process in a weird way. So I have been saying it was my gateway to policy, like learning about policy. And I've been saying to people that if we can learn how policy works in this sort of fun subject, then we can apply it to more serious subjects in our lives, like insurance or whatever, whatever might be affecting you. I just feel like it's like a sort of a fun topic to talk about and also learn about the political process. One of the things I've learned, and you mentioned it, and I just wanted to give you a brief space, and then I actually wanted to switch to the fun topic of ethics reform. What other, can you think of another example where you've seen businesses sort of like elbow their way out in the name of like for example, like I've been given an example of like Uber versus taxi cabs, where taxis were like, oh, this Uber, it's unregulated, like it's all this competition, like we paid for these state medallions. I've also been given the example of like there's some areas in Illinois where you actually have to like call a licensed plumber. Like you can't even do, and I might be a little bit wrong on this, so correct me if you know more about this, but like it's like you couldn't do your own plumbing if you wanted to. And this was a way where like the way the person was telling me, they're like, this is like basically special interests preventing you from doing homework. I was just curious if you're aware of other examples,
Yeah.
where this.
Honestly, we could do an entire podcast just on this topic. I'll pick a couple because I tend to answer
just briefly.
way too long.
Yeah.
I mean, there's right to repair. On farm equipment, you've got some of the big farm equipment manufacturers in Illinois are based in Illinois, and for a long time, they would sell you the equipment, but not give you the right to actually repair that equipment, especially as electronics become a bigger part of it, because they wanted that repair business. And it's, these are situations where I mentioned crony capitalism, where you become hyper focused on the bottom line, even when it hurts your customers. The good news is right to repair has become an actual right, where farmers are starting to gain that right to repair their own equipment that they have purchased. But I'd actually take you to an area that I don't know that most people talk about, because every time I bring this up, I get a blank stare. People go, wow, really? So let's talk about the medical field, and especially as it relates to hospitals and medical facilities. In Illinois, there's a process called the Certificate of Need, the CON process. Nobody knows about it. It's done in a dark back room. When you want to think about smoke-filled back rooms, this is the epitome of it. And if you ask anybody who works in the medical profession, in the medical field, they will tell you it is one of the last holdouts of sort of that old school mentality when it comes to politics and Chicago politics, where you got to grease palms to get anything done. It is incredibly expensive and difficult. You got to know somebody. You got to, in many cases, pay some people off if you want to get what you need to be able to open up a hospital or even a medical facility. And I've heard from so many people that there is a significant amount of capital sitting on the sidelines that would like to invest in a local doctor's office or a specialty facility that would focus on a certain area of health needs, or a hospital that is artificially keeping prices high because there's a lack of competition now in the medical field in Illinois. It's one of the reasons why medical costs and insurance costs and just your overall health related costs are higher in Illinois than they are in many other states. This is one of those reasons. And I love to talk about it because nobody knows about it. But if we could just open that up, just even that is something that could easily be opened up. You bring more capital, more investment into the medical field, into hospitals and healthcare in Illinois. You start to bring more competition, more choices, more options for people. You lower their costs. And what's one of the top 1, 2, or 3 complaints for working families in Illinois? It's healthcare costs. I mean, this is absolutely a way that we could start to lower healthcare costs, but it's because of a lack of competition. It's because of special interests and their ability to elbow out competition. It isn't just big business that does it. I mean, this is something that's done. You mentioned plumbers. That was more union related. This can happen in any sector of the economy. When you are a state like Illinois that's controlled by party bosses and special interests, what matters more than having a good product or a good service or charging a fair rate to your customers, to the people, what matters more is who you know and how much you're willing to cut to their campaign account. And that's where building this independent movement, we can break a whole lot of that.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you don't want to miss another broadcast, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or at colememo.com/subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please like, share, and consider visiting colememo.com/support. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll join me on the next broadcast of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
My new life goal is to become important enough that when I say the Cole Memo, it makes it into that intro.
I got the memo.
Thanks, Cole Memo. Appreciate it.